The stupidest people in our country work for Donald Trump, which is no surprise considering he is the stupidest president in American history. But why does he want to surround himself with these idiots? Well, the reason is they're shameless liars. They are always willing to defend whatever action he takes, whatever statement he slurs his way through. But when it comes to the Epstein files, they can't defend him. Not because they're unwilling to. We've seen Meghan R. Kelly go as far as to say it's fine to hang out with 15-year-olds. But whenever they try to defend Donald Trump, they only bring more attention to his biggest scandal, and that is what Karoline Leavitt accidentally just did, leaking Epstein evidence that is blowing up in Trump's face that we are going to get into. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get into what Leavitt shared, leaking Epstein evidence, again, blowing up in Donald Trump's face, I want to start with the evidence that he's really worried coming out. The interview that was completely fabricated between Ghislaine Maxwell and Todd Blanche. Jamie Raskin broke it down.
Well, that's right. All these emails, of course, completely debunk and discredit what Ghislaine Maxwell told Todd Blanche when he went over and engaged in that sweetheart interview with her. Now, his defense to this, we didn't have all of the emails from the Epstein estate. First of all, I find that almost impossible to believe. If you look at the index of what was seized by the FBI, it includes 40 computers from Jeffrey Epstein, 26 storage drives, for a total of I think it's more than 300 gigabytes of material. So the idea that his emails weren't in there is ridiculous. And of course, they probably didn't look. If they were in there, they never looked for them, because the very first thing they did when they took over the Department of Justice was they summoned all of the prosecutors' materials that had been assembled over the years, and they declared the case over. They shut it down before they looked at anything. But let's assume that he knew what he was talking about and he was telling the truth, that they were not in there. Obviously, the thing to do now is to say, okay, we're going to have a second round of interviews with the witness here, with Ghislaine Maxwell, now that we have all of these emails that completely debunk and undermine what it was she was saying. But they're not going to make any movement in that direction, of course, because they just want the whole thing to go away. And all of it invites the question, in what capacity has he been acting? Is it as Donald Trump's personal criminal defense lawyer, or is it as the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, who's interested in protecting victims and future victims from a billion-dollar child sex predator ring that operates or operated or has operated all over the world? And so, maybe he was operating as Donald Trump's emissary to determine, one, that she would say nothing untoward about Donald Trump, and two, to see whether she was going to be cooperative enough to actually merit a pardon from Donald Trump. So he's acting kind of like a pardon attorney. Well, he obviously will do anything that Donald Trump tells him to do. I think what it is that Congress needs to do at this point is to say that we completely oppose a pardon for this convicted child sex offender who continues to lie about both Jeffrey Epstein and also about Donald Trump if these emails are to be credited.
What Donald Trump clearly doesn't understand, and what he didn't understand with the very stupid political calculation of sending Todd Blanche to interview Ghislaine Maxwell, is that when he brings attention to Epstein, no matter if it's good, as in Ghislaine Maxwell lying and saying that Trump was never even around Jeffrey Epstein, and they didn't even know each other. Of course, this was a lie, and it's continued to be proved as a lie as these emails come out. But even when Donald Trump tries to get positive reviews from the pedos around Epstein, it's not good for him. And of course, the bad is really bad. But Donald Trump's crusade asking Pam Bondi to go after Larry Summer and Bill Clinton and any other Democrat that he can name is the same misstep, politically at least, as having Todd Blanche talk to Ghislaine Maxwell. It is an admission of the thing that Trump tries to say is the Epstein hoax. It can't be a hoax if you want a further investigation. And if you want a further investigation, why won't you release the files? And if you won't release the files, aren't you in the files? This is the thing that Donald Trump doesn't understand, and it just doesn't clock to MAGA, which is why, very stupidly, Karoline Leavitt decided to share this post, sharing evidence, and it's just blowing up in her face. Karoline Leavitt, from her official account, retweeted and reposted, "This is astonishing. During a congressional hearing, Jeffrey Epstein was texting Congresswoman Plaskett, feeding her questions, which she proceeded to ask." So this story is popping off, obviously, right now of Jeffrey Epstein having communicated with a Democratic congresswoman during a committee hearing in which she was grilling Donald Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen. And, of course, Karoline Leavitt was sharing that as to say, ooh, look at Epstein's involvement with Democrats. Look at Epstein being involved in what's happening with the government. Look at Epstein, having his fingers in all these places. Yeah, it's bad. Shouldn't we release the files then? Do they not understand what she's doing? Does she not understand what she's admitting? She's admitting that Jeffrey Epstein had close ties to so many people in our government, and we do not care if they have a D or an R in front of their name. We just want the files released. And Karoline Leavitt clearly doesn't understand that. And if what she is saying, if what she is alluding to, if what she is admitting is that Jeffrey Epstein was so involved at every level of power in this country that we need to look into it more, then isn't she saying that her boss is standing in the way of important work and important investigations getting done? Does she not realize that she's admitting that? She is just bringing more attention to Epstein. And it doesn't matter. I don't care who he was involved with. I just want investigations. I just want to know. And of course, we've started to finally have this conversation that Epstein clearly was worried about Donald Trump. Michael Wolff warned him that he was in the firing line, in the gun sights, because Donald Trump was rising in political power, and that while he may have a debt to pay to Epstein for not talking about him, of course that's Trump, didn't want Epstein to say anything, he was also in a lot of danger. So it would be no surprise that Epstein would have some thoughts on Donald Trump and his lawyer, what he'd be communicating, talking about, thinking about. But what is clear to me, what is very obvious, is that Karoline Leavitt doesn't understand that bringing up Epstein only makes our point, that there needs to be more transparency. She somehow, though, doesn't get that. But we will continue to call for it, just like Jasmine Crockett did right here.
Do you know more about what these documents may say about President Trump or other powerful politicians that the public does not know yet?
Yeah, there's still more that committee staff is going through and determining what needs to be redacted before the release. And then we always consult with leadership on the Republican side as well before any drops are made public. And I fully anticipate that we will receive more, at least from the estate of Epstein. It does not seem like the Department of Justice has really been inclined to actually participate, which is one reason that we're talking about this discharge petition and talking about this vote. It's because we need something with a little bit more fire behind it to hopefully get the Department of Justice to finally start to cooperate.
Why is it that Epstein's estate, the Todd Blanche, the president's deputy attorney general now, he wrote this morning that when he went to interview Ghislaine Maxwell, quite a moment, that law enforcement didn't have the materials that Epstein's estate hid for years and only just provided to Congress. Why is he saying this now, and why is the estate talking to Congress if not to the...
Have you ever heard of CYA? That's exactly what we've got going on. And it was interesting because you made a Freudian slip. You said the president's attorney. You're right. That's who he is.
I should have said former personal attorney.
That's who he is, though. Like, I'm sticking with it. I get what you got to say. But at the end of the day, that's what he's been trying to do. He's been trying to do Trump's bidding. He has not been acting like anyone's attorney general. And we know that when it comes down to whether you're the deputy or whether you are, say, Pam Bondi, the actual AG, you are supposed to be the people's attorney. But she has decided that she wants to neglect the people and do whatever it is that Trump wants her to do, along with Todd Blanche. So here it is. He's like, well, I didn't have all the information. Well, sir, did you try to get the rest of the information? Do we know for sure that the Department of Justice didn't have this information? And if they didn't have this information, do we know whether or not they actually deleted this information? Do we know that there was a thorough investigation? Do we know whether or not the investigation had concluded? These are all questions that we need answers to, but we can't get them when you're not cooperating. So we don't know what the DOJ has, nor what it is that the DOJ potentially was trying to do. Considering that the president right now is trying to obstruct on some very basics of let's just get a subpoena that says release all the information, I wouldn't be surprised, just like he obstructed the prosecution of one of his henchmen who took $50,000 in taxpayer dollars from undercover officers. I wouldn't be surprised if he sent a message and said, stop investigating. We're done with this. Epstein's dead. I don't want to hear anything else about it.
Do you have any evidence of that claim?
I have no idea. No, that's the whole point. I have no information. And that's why we need these files to be released, because we are looking for transparency, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or independent. Listen, if people decide that they want to continue to support a person who may be a pedophile himself, or a person who obviously is covering for pedophiles, that's on them. But they should know at least the devil that they have decided to pick.
We saw at the top of the show a number of, at the time, Donald Trump surrogates and supporters, including his son and his vice presidential nominee, say that the Epstein files should be released. Obviously, there was a Democrat who was president at the time, Joe Biden. Why were Democrats not louder at that time about this release?
So a couple of things. Number one, you had pending litigation. So we're not the ones that went out making some campaign promises. In fact, the vast majority of Democrats had been campaigning on things such as affordability. I know that Kamala Harris had an actual plan so that people wouldn't necessarily be stuck in a mortgage for 50 years, but instead she wanted to make sure that they could have $25,000 down payment so that they could move into homes and make life overall more affordable. So we were focused on the bread and butter issues. This was a campaign issue of his. But while there was pending litigation, if you look at when Maxwell was finally convicted, and honestly, she just finished probably one of her last appeals here recently, you are not usually in the middle of an active case and then you say, oh yes, we're going to release everything. That's not how that goes. So she was prosecuted under the Biden-Harris administration. So no, this was not something to do at that point in time. At this point in time, it's clear that they are not interested in going forward with any additional prosecutions, in addition to the fact that the survivors have come forward. They are begging Congress to do this. This is not something that the survivors were necessarily doing at that time. They were still believing in the system and hoping that it would work.
We need to continue to beat this drum and I guess allow MAGA to beat themselves over the head with it, because they clearly, again, just don't understand. We want the files released. We want transparency. We will take that in whatever form it comes in. And we are going to keep calling for it on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep on fighting, y'all. Don't let them silence you. And until next time, I'll see you soon.